Hey guys, this is Josh, and this is my friend Daniel. We are part of a street team for Jeff Bethke's new book. It's Not What You Think. It's been a really awesome book to be able to get. As a street team, we are actually being able to preview the book beforehand. Today is the actual official release day, so we're like really excited to be able to get a preview of it, get to interact with Jeff on a private Facebook group and things like that, and some of the publishers. Just really cool stuff to be able to be part of this. I personally was part of the street team last year with his first book release with Jesus is Greater Than Religion. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Wonderful book. I met a lot of cool people. Was really nice just to meet some new people from all across the country, being able to promote the book in all kinds of different ways. And we did some live shows last year on Hangouts, so we're doing a little bit different this year and trying out Blab and seeing how that's going. So this is my friend Daniel here. He is one of the other street team members. So if you want to just kind of introduce people about what you do and how you found out about Jeff.
Well, right now I'm an airman for the Air Force. I found out about Jeff when it was over a year ago, but a lot of stuff's happened, so it seems like it was a couple of years. But I found out from my cousin. He told me about Jeff Bethke's videos and showed me his first, that really big one, the Why Jesus is Greater Than Religion video, and I really liked his spoken word and his poems, and I really like where he's going with. I feel like he's got a ministry going. I think he's doing real well serving, and telling people about Jesus and who he really is. So I think that the more I've gotten to know God and Jesus, the more I really liked his videos because he taught me a lot, and got me to, and from his book and from his videos, I dug into learning more about God myself. So I think, and this is my first time being part of this team, the street team, for the release of one of his books. I heard that there was one for his wife's book too, but yeah. So
I didn't get to be part of that one, but I thought that was a pretty cool book too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that she was doing one for hers too, and I think it's cool how they're working as a team, and she's helping him with everything, and they're a really good example for a married couple too. So yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this, and the book is, from what I've read so far, the book has been great.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. He just started the street team, was it just about a month ago or so, or just a little over a month, I think. And I was excited to get the email of acceptance that I was able to be part of this team too. Tim Schrader, he's one of the guys that kind of heads things up with the street team and promoting and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool to kind of interact with them. And I found out from, I'm trying to remember, I think it was definitely the Jesus is Greater Than Religion video, the one that went viral, his like first one that he did. That's how I found out about Jeff, and just kind of really appreciated how he did stuff and how he communicated. Because for one, like last, I don't know, it's probably a good 10 years now that like the whole theme of Jesus versus religion, or like basically religion versus relationship, has been like kind of one of those messages or themes that have kind of really meant a lot to me, because I grew up in a very religious background, and it's no bashing against the background that I grew up in or like my family or anything like that. But me personally, I bought into the system more than the Jesus himself. And so that's kind of like where a lot of that kind of stuff kind of really helped me kind of get out of that kind of situation, or like I was going through those kind of struggles. And now, like with this new book, I got it actually right here. It's Not What You Think. And the subtitle is Why Christianity is About So Much More Than Just Going to Heaven When You Die. And it's an interesting title. And I would say that a lot of it does talk about, it's definitely more than just about going to heaven. It's more than just about what you call like health insurance kind of thing, or fire insurance. Is that it's not what you think. And like, I was listening to his Periscope earlier today, and someone asked a question like, "What's his target audience?" And it was basically some people like, if you're kind of new to the faith, or if you struggled with the faith, if you're trying to find identity in the faith, kind of thing. It's kind of like where he was going with it. And from what I've read so far, just some briefly kind of pointed out, is like it kind of picks apart some of the major areas in Christianity and kind of like redefines it for you, I guess you could say, or put it in that kind of perspective. And so I guess with that said, we can kind of go into some of the highlights that we thought were pretty cool. Like, I don't know, I got the hard copy a few days ago, so I started reading out of it. And I was reading just a digital version of it, but there's tons and tons. Like, you could really just highlight a bunch of different stuff in this book, and a lot of stuff that really means a lot if you're growing in the faith, or if you're just trying to find identity in your faith and things like that. Find the contents of the book real quick. But just to kind of go over the outline of the book, what I can do is, like, chapter 1, your story is not what you think. Love defined before anything else did. And with that one, it was kind of opened up into, like, you can't talk about the Gospels without talking about Genesis. And that's a completely different kind of perspective than what we normally see in the church, because normally we think about the Gospels, we think about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and that's the gospel. But we can't talk about that without talking about the beginning. So what was your takeaway on that part, Daniel?
I really like the how he talked about Genesis, how he opened my eyes a great deal with that part where he talked about the way he wrote, the way that the Genesis was written, especially in the beginning, where how God created the world. It's how he created the temple too, like a lot of similarities, and how it was the order of things were done, and how how a specific way everything was done, and it's like the world is almost like the world was a temple, and it's like it was God's dwelling place before the fall. So the whole world was that way before the fall. And then I think from my understanding, from when Jesus came, and after the Holy Spirit came, yeah, it was like God had come down to earth again. When God had come down to earth in physical form when Jesus came, but he was everywhere. Like, the whole world was his dwelling place again when the Holy Spirit came. So it's like, that's how I understood that part where he's talking about how, like, looking at culturally, how back when Genesis was written, if you knew that culture, then you'd know that how it was written was how they made the temple and how the temple was. So yeah, it made a lot of sense to me, and I thought that was the most interesting part of that.
Yeah, it kind of gives context to how we kind of fit in the picture. Like, between the first chapter and the second chapter, the temple is not what you think. It's God pitching his tent for our backyard. Basically, like, the theme is like God has always wanted to be with us, and he's done what he could to be with us in different ways, like in different formats. And that's the whole reason why, Jesus came back, the Holy Spirit came down, all that kind of stuff. But so I'm just going to go over the contents, the actual chapters and stuff, so that way we can kind of just talk about maybe just some of the highlights after that. But chapter 3 is people are not who you think. They're neighbors to love, not commodities to use. Chapter 4 is you aren't who you think. You're a person from the future. And that's kind of a fun one because he used a lot of Back to the Future references. So that was a fun chapter. Number 5 is the Sabbath's not what you think. You rest as you play. And number 6 was worship's not what you think. You become what you behold. Chapter 7 is the kingdom's not where you think. It's not in the sky. It's here now. Chapter 8 is brokenness is not what you think. You must embrace your scars. Number 9 is the table is not what you think. It's not just a meal. It's a sacred place. So that kind of breaks down like those layers that I was talking about, how in a thought that I had earlier today was how like his first book, Jesus First Religion, it was kind of redefining who Jesus is in our culture today. Because I think we've got kind of a skew, or for the most part, we've got a lot of different skewness of what Jesus is actually, or who he is, and the picture that we normally portray him as. And especially in like in our American Western culture, we just have like this really odd picture of what Jesus is. And a lot of our just kind of like, what do you call the felt board kind of Jesus, like the little story time Jesus, story times and all that kind of stuff is kind of like the image that we get. We don't really move beyond the just the simple, easy Jesus that we thought about when we were a kid. We just kind of always kind of adopt that mindset of Jesus, and that's kind of like what Jesus First Religion did. And like, so what I would say, like this book kind of points it back to us. It starts to work on our character more than what Jesus's character is, if that makes any sense. While he still points at God, points our attention back towards God, he's working on the character of who we are in Christ, where we stand, where we are in his kingdom as a child and things like that. So with going through this book, that's kind of like it kind of broke down to layers. Like for me, probably the chapter that stuck out to me the most was the Sabbath is not what you think. It's for rest as you play. And the reason why that one meant a lot to me is because I can't tell you the last time I felt restful. Like, I'm not talking about sleeping or taking a nap. It's like, when was I in a place of rest? Like, I've been like just super busy. And he talks about like the fear of silence, the fear of being alone, the fear of not knowing something, because whether it's our technology or TVs or like I can't just go on a car ride, like, and that's why I see a lot of people texting and driving, is because like we can't stand to not be silent and just to be. Like we weren't made to be human doers, but human beings is one way that he puts it too. So that chapter 5, redefining the Sabbath, like we need Sabbath in our life. And that's, I mean, even if you're not a Christian, like everybody needs a Sabbath in their life, because like we weren't built to just be busy all the time.
Right. And just, yeah, have a day of real rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I didn't get that far, but that's kind of, exciting knowing that he talked about that.
Yeah. Have you seen his recent video, Put Your Phone Down, or I think is the title of his new video?
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like that video is a depiction of chapter 5. It hits home with me a lot for me, because my hobby is mobile technology. Like I have a tech blog about smartphones and all that kind of stuff, and I'm constantly making content about that kind of stuff. So it's like it's so much part of my life. Heck, I'm even a social media coordinator for the company I work for. So it's like I feel like my life is just always revolved around technology, that I'm always trying to find out the newest thing. I'm always trying to be on top of stuff, trying to grow, all kinds of things. Like it's just constant. And I think it's one of those things, like you almost want to take one of those challenges, or at least for me, take one of those challenges to not use a smartphone at least for like a day or two and see what happens. Like maybe just a whole weekend. That would be a challenge for me to be able to have to put that down. And I don't know if I could. And then like with that challenge, you also have to work with the wrestling with being okay with that. That's probably the hardest part, because we're, like we said, we have to have rest. But am I going to be like 10 minutes into the silence and wanting to know what's going on? I feel like I'm losing out, afraid of what's going to be happening. I mean, just thinking about some of my habits, like part of the reason why I keep my phone on during the night, I have it on vibrate, but it's like, you know, there was one time where my dad, he was going through some health issues and I didn't have my phone on. And so my brother came pounding on the door to wake us up, because it was like in the middle of the night. So it's like I have this fear, like something's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to know about it or something like that, and miss out or not be where I need to be because I didn't have my phone on. So it's like even in my sleep, I'm not resting because I'm still trying to be alert to what's going on.
Yeah. Reminds me of how got a friend named John who has his we both have the same kind of phone and the same carrier, and he was talking about how he likes how his phone can he can like put it on this like night mode where only certain people can call.
Yeah.
So I think that even that is a good thing for not just during the night, but if you want to spend a day, have a day of rest where, and then have like where only like your wife or, you know, immediate people who are, or maybe your boss or like
Yeah.
immediate people who you have to be able to have them contact you if they need to.
Right.
Like have something like that. Like I think that would be a good program for a phone if they have it for all day.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was really good. It's a really good, like it hit home for me too. Like um, not just for phones, but technology and social networking and the internet.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard just to get away. And he was talking about how like we're so focused on staying connected that we lose connection with what's going on around us.
Right.
And like and it showed in the video is, you know, he was doing something on his phone and his wife and his daughter was in the background in front of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's like yeah, that's it was really deep, and I thought that was if that's what chapter 6
That was chapter
um
5 about the Sabbath.
right, chapter 5 about if that video is connected to that, I think that's real deep, and that's going to hit home
Yeah.
for a lot of people. And
Yeah. I agree.
yeah, it's really hard with how our world is now to like just completely shut down from the internet and all connection like to it, like even for a day. It's like it drives you crazy, like just thinking like I want to do this or I want to do that. Like you're almost like dependent on it, like
Mm-hmm.
almost like water or food. Like you need it to know how to do something or need it for information. Um, need it for connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, and so like we become dependent on it, and it's hard to separate from it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's like a slippery slope because for the longest time, I would be like, Facebook is my way to keep up with friends and family that aren't around me, like they're in other towns or out of town, not where I live, and things like that. But slowly but surely, even the people that are a mile away from me, I'm checking up on them on social media versus just picking up the phone or just getting in the car and driving and knocking on the door to hang out. It's like we're losing that. Like we're so connected that we're unconnected.
Right.
And that kind of leads into another really, I think the other chapter that I liked a lot is it's chapter 3, and it's people are not who you think they are, or people are not who you think. And it kind of goes into the kind of same concept of how this culture we're a consumer based kind of culture. We have to have like one of the quotes is everything has to have a return on its investment. It's all about the bottom line, and that way of living has bled into our relationships. It's like if I'm not getting something out of what I'm putting into it, it's not worth my time. Like time has become a currency versus something that's appreciated and like valued. It's more of just it's literally like a currency. Like my time is actually more important than money at times.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's the way it is for me. But and also just an observation of our culture. Another good quote that I highlighted was one common side effect of emotional bankruptcy, too, is the sense you don't have to have the anchor in peace. You fight to get anything that you can from anyone else. You quickly begin to see people only in terms of what you can get out of them rather than what you can give into them or do with them. And so it kind of goes into the concept of just, people are not a commodity, and they're people. Like we want to be able to have a relationship with people, but if if they're not giving back to us, we kind of write people off. Like, well, they don't do anything for me, so I'm not going to, waste my time with it or something like that. That's kind of the mentality that is commonly seen. Any other? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Any other highlights you were going to ask me?
Was it anything that you want to share, man? Go for it. I'm just kind of picking through some of the highlights and notes that I've made, and I'll share them as I see them. But dude, go for it. If you've got anything else you want to say, just shout it out.
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me was the most from what I read. I think I made it some of the way through chapter 3 maybe, but it really impacted me when he talked about I can't look at it right now because my PDF isn't working, but I know it talked about how he was in youth group or something, and it was a really impactful moment of time for him where everyone closed their eyes, and the guy who came and said, all right, anybody who wants to come to Jesus right now, just say this prayer. And after hearing that, I was like, wow. And he talked about how what if Jesus was like that, and he was this guy who just Mr. Rogers. All right, boys and girls, now if all you close your eyes, you can just repeat after me. If you want me as Lord, all you have to say is, and it was I was like, yeah, it seems like that's the Jesus that I grew up with, and that's the Jesus that you were talking about earlier with how he's cardboard or plastic, Mr. Rogers and all nice and Jesus was good, but that doesn't mean that he was Mr. Nice Guy, I mean, he got angry and he was human, he got sad, he got angry, he got passionate about things, and
I mean, if you think about his profession, he was a carpenter. Carpenters were not wimps. They were men. So,
yeah,
especially back then, because it was such a tough, it was one of the tougher professions that people had. And
it's all hands.
Yeah. So he's I mean, he's not just, like you said, just a nice little Mr. Rogers. Just come, let's have story time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it talked about when he went into the temple and he saw money changers and stuff, and it's a well-known story, but he flipped tables over and yelled at them you hypocrites, or maybe that was another time when he said yelled hypocrites, but he said you're making my father's temple into I can't remember.
A house of slaves and thieves and things like that.
Yeah, a den of thieves. Right, exactly. That's it. A den of thieves. And so he got angry and he got passionate, and he was human and he was just like everybody else. And so that's another thing I get upset about when I go to church sometimes and I see people all smiles and it's everybody puts on a mask, and that's what turns a lot of people off from church. It feels fake when you go there.
Yeah.
If the people there are have that attitude where it's just the one day of the week where they just put on a mask and everything and their life is perfect. I mean, when it comes to the Christians, the people who aren't Christians go and they're just looking for something real,
right?
And they, church should be church service should be the place where you get real, you see the world for what it is, and you from whatever message the pastor, preacher, whatever tells that day. And so I think that was a great thing that like about this book is Jeff said so many things that I've thought but had never had the words to say
Yeah,
and the
he's
outlet.
got a way of doing that.
Yeah, and it's like I have a friend who he's like my mentor, and he's told me so many of these things, and and I see it everywhere. Like it's no lie that um, that everything is different than it's like it's not what you think.
Yeah.
Is just like his title of his book. It's not what you think. And he's not talking to people, just to people who are atheist
Hmm.
or agnostic. He's talking to us. Sorry, I have like a
Automatic light.
yeah, it's like a motion sensor once. But anyways, um, yeah. So once I totally lost track of my
it's,
thought,
it's,
but
it's all good.
yeah, it's that was big for me. Was like I said, okay, I kind of getting back on track now. Yeah, he said so many things that I thought and have always thought and wanted to say, but didn't have the outlet. And so I strongly support him for that reason.
Yeah.
And in this book, um, yeah, and it's not like I said, it was not just for agnostics and atheists, but it's for Christians who we don't know the whole story. And
Yeah.
all we know is that plastic Jesus that we were talking about, Mr. Rogers from our childhood, or whatever our household raised us on, and whatever the church raised us on, that's
Hmm.
all we know about Jesus. And a lot of people, like, they hit a certain age, and that Jesus just seems fake to them, and they see that world of mask where it's all just seems plastic, and they don't, and it doesn't seem real, and the whole world around them is like completely contrary to, like, accept Jesus in your life and everything will be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like
It actually
the
gets tougher.
or yeah, or you'll go to heaven when you die, and that's it. Like, and I really liked something he said. I don't know if it's word for word, but for the most part, what he said was in the book, heaven is here. It's
Hmm.
not just a place up in heaven, and God's not looking at down at you from heaven. He's here, and heaven is here now. The kingdom has come, and what are we gonna do with it? What are we gonna do about it? And
Yeah.
and that's what I think this he really wants to reach people with this book. And yeah, I think it really from what I just the two and a half chapters that I read, I'm still really excited to finish it. And it's just that was impactful, and that's how on his first book was for me. From the very first chapter, um, I was glued. Like, I
Hmm.
just could not wait to finish it,
Right.
and it was very impactful. So I recommend it to anybody, all people, agnostic, atheist, Christian, um, Muslim, uh, anybody, any religion, any, like, it's not a book just about like a plastic Jesus. It's about a real person, and it's about who you are, and like you said, like how you relate to his story, how you relate to this real person's story who lived and who is alive in you if you want to get to know him.
Yeah, I kind of like how you opened the book, and I want to say it's this book. I tend to get kind of mixed up between his two books, but about how we're almost to the point to where we're at a status of Christianity to where do we need to start like the ones that want to follow Christ or disciples of Christ? to actually call ourselves something different besides Christians because of just how everything's kind of just been skewed. And that just kind of like, that's, I think, what got me hooked the most was when he kind of made those statements. I want to say it was this book. I'm pretty sure it was. But like I said, some of the content kind of gets mixed between the two. But with that, like what you're saying, it's like if you're a Christian or if you're, no matter who you are, like Jeff said that there's a target audience, but honestly, like I think this would just be a benefit for a lot of people, especially like with what's going on in society now. It kind of seems like the tables are starting to flip on us a little bit. It used to be like Christianity as a religion was running the show, but now it's more like kind of like we're starting to become more of the minority and our voices are not as, doesn't hold as much weight as it used to, put it that way. But there's one more concept that I definitely want to communicate before we go ahead and close out the show. And he mentioned it a couple times in his book, and it's basically God's reaction whenever something went wrong. Normally we think of like doom and gloom or punishment or anything like that. But like when Adam and Eve messed up, what was God's first reaction? And this is not a conversation that you hear a lot of times. You kind of hear the story, but if you kind of step back and look at what happened and how God handled it, that is the character of God. He's not just this guy, man in the sky that's angry at the world, that's trying to figure out a way to destroy it or trying to redo things or anything like that. His first reaction was to go find them. Like, and that's really sets the tone for if you look at God through that kind of filter, that's the message of the Bible. He's going after us. He wants to dwell with us. He didn't obviously he knew where they were, but he didn't go after them in a sense of like, you messed up, you deserve this, you deserve that. No, I want to be with you. Let's go through this together. That is his reaction. And then later on in the New Testament, we hear the prodigal son and the father story. And I'll just read part of the book here. The father would have known the kazaa, which kazaa is a ceremony kind of thing back in the day. Just Google it. I won't go into it right now, but was warranted. So he ran to make sure that his was the first voice over his son. He spoke truth. It says, "You are loved, you are known. I don't see your mess. I just see you." What is the first voice over you? What is the first voice? It's the voice of the Father running to you with an open arms. It's the Father declaring that you are his child. Notice in the story that the Father immediately goes to the declarations that explicitly meant sonship, the robe, the ring, the party. The son didn't have to do anything to earn passage back into the family. So basically, that's like the same heart about what happened in the garden as what the prodigal son and the father did. The father did not try to go ruin the son's life and make him earn everything back and all this kind of stuff. His first reaction was to run to him. And like, honestly, like if my kids ever got into a mess to where they just need dad to be with them, I hope to God that my reaction isn't just to get back at them or let them know how much they hurt me or anything like that. I just want to be able to be there. And that's like the heart of the Father, like to be there for them, like to run after them after it's done. There's ways to handle stuff and there's definitely wrong ways to handle stuff. And that's just one of the reactions or like one of the spots in the book that also meant a lot to me, because if you look at yourself in that perspective, like I'm not saying that there aren't consequences and things that you have to own up to and take care of, but God is not this God that's just trying to get back at us. He's not this God that's trying to look for a way to make our life miserable. He's someone that's trying to go after us. He's someone that's trying to be with us and, as the book says, dwell with us since the beginning of time. That's what he's trying to do now. So, I mean, obviously Jeff goes into a whole lot more depth and detail to what versus to what we actually said here on the show. For those that have tuned in, thank you so much for watching the show. If you have not picked up the book yet, you're going to definitely want to do that. You can find it over at itsnotwhatyoutthink.tv, and you can buy it in all kinds of different formats, whether it's Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. It'll be in bookstores. I think Jeff said next week you'll start seeing them pop up on the Walmart and Target shelves. And if you want the hard copies, it's only like $11 hard copy on Amazon. I think like $9 for Kindle. So really inexpensive. But I actually, and I did this last year, I actually encourage you to, if you can, get the hard copy, because it's going to be one of those books that you're going to want to pass it on to somebody else. And it's hard to pass on an e-reader type style book or whatever. So I definitely encourage you to get one of those. Really cool stuff. Follow Jeff on all his social networks. He's got really good content. His channel, he comes out with frequent videos. He's got a really good one that we mentioned before called Put Down Your Phone. It definitely speaks to me and challenges my lifestyle for sure. So with that said, I think we're just going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more content this week about the book. Follow the hashtag. What is the hash? It's INWYT book. So basically the first letter of each word of the title and then book, and that's it. And you can follow a lot of different stuff. The street team is out there promoting the book. They're also writing reviews, so you get to see a lot of different perspectives about the book as well, not just mine or Daniel's. So definitely stay tuned for that kind of stuff. If you follow that hashtag, you follow all the different content being pushed out there. So thanks, Daniel, for joining in. We've been kind of chatting back and forth, trying to get onto a show, get something up and running. So we're happy to be able to come together and do this show on launch day.
All right. Yeah, check it out. INYT, all caps, book, lowercase. Check that hashtag out. And the website, it's not what you think .tv. That is a great place to get the book because you can get all kinds of awesome content along with it for free. At least the last time I checked for pre-ordering it, you could. So check that out definitely. And have a nice day.
Yeah, and we'll catch y'all. Add us on the social networks if you want to continue the conversation. We'd be happy to follow each other and just kind of keep this thing going. So on Twitter, you can hit me up at Joshua Bane. And until then, we'll see you sometime on the